cost of living crisis may no longer be in newspaper headlines every day, but for lots of ordinary people, they're struggling to get by. 1 in 3 are not turning on the heating because they're worried about paying those bills at the end of the month. 1 in 5 are skipping meals, and a whopping 80% of people say that their finances aren't getting better. So that's really important this year. That's why the government has to absolutely focus on driving up people's living standards. We saw some moves towards that in the budget this year. Help to tackle those heating bills, raising the minimum wage, holding down train fares, crucially lifting that two-child benefit cap. But the government really does need to focus this year on putting more money in people's pockets.
You've said that the Employment Rights Act, now it's got its royal assent, is a perfect Christmas present for many workers, and yet you've said the timetable cannot slip. A half-baked ban on zero-hours contracts is no good, and paltry fines for employers won't do. What are your concerns then about the bill? Are you worried too many concessions have been made?
Well, the Employment Rights Act has the potential to transform life at work for millions of people. Sick pay from day one, an end to exploitative zero-hours contracts, giving people a union voice at work. But a Diet Coke version of the Employment Rights Act won't benefit millions of workers. So we need the government to deliver at speed and to deliver the Act in full, alongside its broader agenda to make work pay. So tackling bogus self-employment, delivering that biggest wave of public sector insourcing that they promised at the last general election. Employment Rights Act is a huge step forward, but there's still more for the government to do in 2026.
The fact that you're calling on the government to deliver suggests that you have concerns that they're not going to stick to their promises.
Well, listen, I think the government fully intends to deliver the Employment Rights Act in spirit as well as in the letter of the legislation. But there will be voices calling on them to dilute and to delay different aspects of the Act, whether it's dodgy bosses or those in the right-wing press and media. The likes of Amazon will fight tooth and nail against key provisions like allowing unions access to the workplace. But I'm convinced that if the government acts at speed, delivers the Act in full, it will deliver a huge boost in workers' rights for millions of people across the country.
You talk about the timetable, say it cannot slip. What is the timetable that you believe the government needs to implement?
Well, the government's already set out its timetable for the Employment Rights Act, and it's really important that that doesn't slip. That includes, for example, sick pay from day one coming in this April alongside new rights to parental leave from day one. It was why it was so important that the Act got royal assent before Christmas, because we need to have this not just a piece of legislation on the statute book, but having a real impact in Britain's workplace. Millions of workers have been waiting a long time for these new rights, and it's important that the government delivers them as soon as possible.
How concerned are you about the concessions that the government made in response to all those defeats in the House of Lords, the ping pong? There were various concessions made, for example, on day one rights for unfair dismissal and so on. How concerned are you that the bill is not as strong as it should be, given those concessions?
Well, the priority for unions and for the millions of workers that we represent was getting that bill onto the statute book before Christmas, and that's what we've managed to achieve. And alongside that 6-month qualifying period for unfair dismissal rights, down from 2 years, which they are at the moment, we've got rid of the cap on compensation for those new rights, and we've also made sure that they come into effect earlier. So it was a compromise, but I'm clear that this set of legislation is the biggest upgrade in workers' rights in a generation. What we need to see now is for it to take effect in workplaces.
What's your view of the election of Andrea Egan, a left-winger expelled from the Labour Party, who's just been elected General Secretary of Britain's biggest trade union, Unison?
That's the decision of Unison members, and absolutely right. It's a democratic union, and it's Unison members that decide who leads that union. I'm looking forward to working with Andrea and 46 of the TUC's other unions to make sure that that Employment Rights Act takes effect in workplaces as quickly as possible, and to make sure that we stand up for millions of low-paid workers across the public and private sector, including Andrea's members.
It's a big change, though, isn't it? Because, of course, Unison, under its previous General Secretary, current General Secretary, was a loyal Unison in supporting the Prime Minister and the government. That looks as though that's going to change. Does that create problems for you?
Well, I think Andrea will be exactly the same as Christina before her. She'll be standing up for over 1 million Unison members, and their interests will be the ones that she puts first, and rightly so. But I look forward to working with Andrea and with Unison and all of the other TUC unions to make sure that 2026 is the year that we deliver on living standards for working people.
You say that failing to address economic insecurity will lead to a further rise of the far right. What are your fears there?
Well, I think there's a real danger that we've got people who are disillusioned with mainstream politics, who feel that change isn't coming and isn't coming fast enough. That's what they voted for at the last general election, and that's why the government has to be absolutely focused on not just growing the economy, but growing the economy in a way that puts money in people's pockets. And if they don't, then there's a real danger that the far and populist right, Nigel Farage and the likes of Tommy Robinson, the politics of division and the politics of fear and the politics of despair will take hold. I think we need to give people hope. I think we need to put more money in people's pockets to improve people's day-to-day lives. I know that the government has made a start with the budget, but there's much more that they need to do in 2026 to make that reality.
You've warned about the threat of the rise of the far right and Nigel Farage, and yet Labour are languishing in the polls and Reform UK seem to be storming ahead. Is it time to change the leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister, get someone else in to deliver on all the things you want to see?
Listen, at the end of the day, when a government is trailing in the polls and the Prime Minister is trailing in the polls, there'll always be speculation about leadership. But from my perspective, it's really important that the Prime Minister and other members of the Cabinet and the whole Parliamentary Labour Party and the government don't take their eyes off the day job, which is delivering for working people, their families and communities up and down the country. I mean, I think our members want to see that boost to the economy that they can feel in their pockets. That's their priority, rather than who's up and who's down in the Cabinet. So I'm absolutely clear that reform are a dead end. They're a cul-de-sac for working class people. Working class people in this country can't afford reform. Nigel Farage would scrap those new rights for millions of workers. He would privatise our NHS. He'd let loose deregulation in the City of London. That's not an agenda that works for working people. But the government needs to step up to the plate and deliver the real change that people want.
But critics of the Prime Minister will say they would step up to the plate and do better with a different leader, Mr Burnham or Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting. What's your view on that?
Well, as I say, it's not my job to play cabinet top trumps. My job is to make sure that whoever is in number 10 is delivering for working people and their communities. That's my priority. Driving up living standards, improving the world of work and making sure that union members and their families can afford a decent life.